Let me know.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine, warm December 13th in Cuyahoga County. Roll call, please.
Calling the roll, Mr. Gallagher,
Here.
Mr. Greenspan. Here. Mr. Germana, Mr. Germana is here. Mr. Harrison,
Mr. Harrison's on his way.
okay. Ms. Conwell,
Here.
there is a quorum. Also like the record to reflect that Councilman Miller is in attendance.
Welcome, Mr. Miller, as always. In your packet, we have the minutes of November 15th. If they're in order, I'll accept the motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. No matters referred to the committee. Is there a public comment?
No, Mr. Chair, no one has signed it.
I didn't see the reference, so. I had read the article in the paper regarding the potential problem and conflicts that were over at the jail with the attorneys visiting their clients. And in discussion with some of the folks who wanted to get on the table, what exactly is going on, what's been done, what was going on, what's been done to correct it, where we're at now. Mr. Bensing's here, we'll hear from him also. But if we could start with the sheriff, please, I believe.
There we go. Good afternoon.
Welcome, Sheriff.
Well, yes, to start off, I was kind of surprised about the article myself when I read that article because myself, along with Chief Taylor and Director Mills and Chief Bova, we had met with the court on a few occasions about this incident. And we've done several things to address their concerns. And we thought that we were on the right track in regards of the improvements that we've made. So I was kind of surprised to see that article. So what I would like to do is to bring up Director Mills, who can talk more intimately about the changes and upgrades we've done in the correctional facility in regards to the visitation. So,
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Mills.
Good afternoon. Ken Mills, the Director of Regional Corrections. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about the issues that were brought up in the article. I've put a PowerPoint presentation together, hopefully to just provide some background and tell you what we've done and where we're going with it and what we're actually seeing in the jail. You know, for me, the issues that I think came through in that article were lack of action, timeliness and access, and a lack of confidential space. This is our timeline of some of the things we did. It was brought to my attention back last May or June. It was brought, the sheriff brought to both of our attention about a problem going on with visitation. In June, we met with Greg Popovich and the CDLA leadership where they explained the problems and what they were having, what was going on. I took that back, reviewed the procedures, our policy, how we're doing business. Myself, Warden Ivey, and some others went through and maximized everything we could do. We developed a plan of what could we do to eliminate this issue that was going on. We met with Greg again and brought him through the jail to show him the recommended proposed changes. And then in September, you know, we had the RNC and some other things that kind of extended this a little bit. But in September, we met again with Russ Bensing and we agreed on a course of action. We walked him through the plan, what we were talking about doing, opening up other areas and making dedicated spaces for attorney visits. We implemented that plan on October 11th. So the information I'm going to provide throughout this is based off of what we did based off of information from October 11th on. From October 11th to December 2nd, we had 3,893 attorney visits, about an 8-week period there. We also conducted 9,200 social visits. That's a lot of people coming through our facility to accommodate with the visits. Our general hours for attorney visits were 7:30 to 6 or Monday to Friday, 6 to 10 on Saturday and Sunday. And we also allow unscheduled walk-ins throughout the day. They don't have to schedule it. We prefer them to schedule it, but if they come in, we accommodate them to the best that we can. The whole package of changes we did was we designated the entire 7th floor visitation area for attorney only. Used to be that was shared with social visits. So we gave them that space. We extended the visitation hours by 3 hours. We opened one that resulted in 1 contact, 1 private, and 6 regular attorney booths that are dedicated just to attorneys all day long, every day. And we adjusted our staff hours to accommodate the extended hours. In jail 2, and I'll show you some pictures in a minute about what I'm talking about with private and contact, but in jail 2, we designated 10 booths, they're private booths for attorney only throughout all the floors. It's 2 on every floor so that they have those access on every floor, they can see their clients. And most of all, after talking with Russ, I gave him my contact information, the warden's contact information, so that if there's any problems, because some of the issues that were brought up where they were being denied access and other things, was for them to contact us, and we'll fix it, because that's not how it's supposed to be. We implemented on our side to make sure it wasn't happening. Our policy put out that I'm the only person that can deny a visit. Anybody, if they can't come in, it has to be pushed up to my level. We implemented a log to register the after-hour visits, which was that was one of their complaints, was on the weekends and after hours about not coming in. And then in late November, late October, early November, we started putting the body cams on my officers that are interacting there in visitation, so that there was a situation that I can go back to it and try to fix the problem. I can address it. I can identify and address any issues that come out of that. So specifically to address the timeliness, they talked about the attorneys can wait up to an hour. Those are infrequent. For scheduled visits, it's not the standard. That's, it occasionally happens. Unscheduled visits, that can happen. And I'll show you in a minute, there's a lot of steps to making a visit happen. We just can't call up and send somebody down. The attorneys, they have a dedicated hotline to schedule their appointments. And the wait times are really, for most of the incidents that come up, the wait times are extended because they arrive during the hours, restricted hours, which Russ publicized to them to make sure, and that's during our lockdown period when we do count. We do a physical count every day from 11:30 to 1:30, about that time frame. We have no movement in the jail because we have to identify and count every inmate, make sure they're there, and then at that time we feed them lunch also. And I called around because we talked about a little bit after this article came out about what is a reasonable wait time. How do we gauge that? What's reasonable? I talked to Franklin County, and they told me that their attorneys, they only allow them to wait for unscheduled visits 15 to 45 minutes. If it's after that, they make them leave, and then they can come back at another time. We accommodate them. We let people stay as long as we have to get them in to see their clients. This is an example, and I don't intend on you being able to read the steps, but that's the process. That's how many steps it has to be done to be able to conduct a visit. And what has to be done we have to check to make sure there's not separations, for example. Rival gangs, we can't put 2 in the same room, 2 in the same place. We have to see the security requirements on them. There's a whole list of checks that has to be done for the attorney's safety and security and the inmate's safety and security. And there's a lot of factors that can affect, if it's an unscheduled visit, those visits of how, if the inmate is at medical, if it's an unscheduled visit, we have to wait, they have to go through that process. We have to move them twice. They could be in a social visit that takes, they're already in a visit area somewhere else, and you have to get them out. And a lot of times the inmates just don't want to go to attorney visits. So, we make them go, but they drag. It's not a quick, they take their time. If they're in the shower, if there's a disturbance in the jail, we might have to, there's a million variables to get them there in that hour period to make it happen on time for them. There's 3 types of attorney booths that we're talking about. And this, again, is since October 11th. That's the general booth you'll see is the first one, where it's an open area, and there's the dividers where they speak between the glass and the phone. This area here was the main area of concern, and Mr. Benson can speak to that when he gets up, but that was the main area of concern was attorneys didn't have enough privacy. So, you know, they felt like there's somebody sitting right next to them, and I understood that. I could see where at times that would be a problem. We have private attorney booths, which are booths with a glass, and they're not open, and they're you know, they talk on the phone right across. We have 14 of those, and then we have 4 full contact rooms for them that are just, and all these are just reserved for attorneys. All the rooms I'm speaking of. In Hamilton County, for example, they don't even have a contact room. They use the law library for special occasions when that comes up. We actually have dedicated rooms for them to go to. Our space, with this plan, we opened every area I have is open for visitations to accommodate them. And since then, and after the report, we went back from the database, we had systems run a report to compare how many hours, because for me walking around, I don't see them full all the time. And we ran a report about how many hours you know, they were actually occupied and being used. And for the total, if you add all of our rooms that I just mentioned for attorneys, they're only being used 20% of the available spaces. So then if you take the utilization of the contact visits, you know, that's the 4 rooms only, that's being used at 66% of the time. And the private booths, which are, we count the contact booths and the private booths, that's at 38%. So that's what we're seeing, and this is since October 11th, since we implemented the plan that we made the changes to the procedures. Our recommendations with it, you know, continue to work with Mr. Benson. You know, we're open, we're ready to work with them. Anything I can do to make it better, that's process improvement. That's what we're here to do. You know, we want to continue to meet their needs. Since we implemented this plan, I've had 2 calls. I had one and Warden Ivy had one of situations, and they were both special situations. The call I received was a defense attorney had been assigned a case on Thursday for Monday. I immediately opened up, we reserved another whole area assigned for visitation and got him in so he could see his client and have unlimited time with him to get what he needed done. And I received an email back from him thanking us for what we've done. And I know I was standing there when Warden Ivy got a call back from the attorney he assisted, and the attorney actually said, "This is the best experience I've had with the jail." And so I was surprised also when I seen the paper with the complaints still happening, because I thought we'd made significant headway. But I still think that with close collaboration and work with Mr. Benson, that we can, you know, maybe scheduling, prioritizing how the defense attorneys schedule, or maybe there's some room that we can make some improvement on that end. And for me, always is monitor our processes. You know, we went back through it again before I did this presentation. We're always looking for ways to cut time on how long it takes, and to provide a better service. Questions?
Mr. Greenspan.
Thank you. So, if I'm understanding what you're saying, the scheduled visits, you have two types of visits, scheduled and unscheduled.
Yes, sir.
The scheduled visits are working fine. You're not hearing any issues there.
No, sir.
Correct. So the unscheduled visits, obviously, they come up on an unscheduled, almost on an ad hoc basis.
Yes.
And so to your knowledge, there have only been 2 instances where there was a challenge and you accommodated both of them?
Yes, sir. We accommodated both. There was incidents that didn't come to my level. There was one to where a attorney wanted to see the client, and we hadn't had him, he was in booking and hadn't come through. And I know that person told my sergeant standing there, they were calling Judge Russo, and called him standing there while my sergeant was trying to explain to her, we'll get him up as soon as he's processed, we'll bring him right up for you. And at the end of that one, there was an apology, and evidently left very happy after we got the situation resolved for him.
So do you have to, for these visits, the scheduled visits obviously are within a certain time frame, which you outlined. The unscheduled visits may be outside of that time frame.
Absolutely.
If they're outside of that time frame, does the sheriff's department or the COs incur overtime to cost to cover those special visits, or are you able to absorb it within your current staff?
We absorb it within our current staff, and that's why they might have to wait a few minutes, because we have to shift resources to accommodate the visits.
Okay, so it's not, you have the appropriate staff to
Yes,
handle
sir.
this issue?
Yes, sir.
So it's not a staffing issue?
No, sir.
So if all these issues are being addressed and met, then where's the objection coming from? Obviously, it's not you. Is it the court is making the objection? That's what the article said, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'm sure I see Mr. Popovich here will be able to ask that question at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Ms. Conlon.
Through the chair to the director, we're not talking about Euclid Jail, we're just talking about the county
This is
jail.
just downtown, yes, ma'am.
Could there be a certain time for attorney visits, meaning a general time in the course of the day that inmates are in a general area, then that could possibly accommodate the unscheduled visits by letting the attorneys know this is pretty much a good time? Doesn't work like that?
No, ma'am, it doesn't work that way. We still have to run through the process and to try to identify to get them to come in, to get the actual meeting set up. Because, our visitation, the inmates, we're a 1 million square foot facility, and we have to move them from, we have to take them from their housing unit. They have to be escorted to wherever the meeting is and, wherever the visit is, and conducted in that manner.
Do we plan on having a reply from the sheriff's office going to the plain dealer about the inaccuracies of the article?
No, ma'am.
Did you want to, I was sitting trying to figure out, is there something more that you can do, but after hearing this, do you want to touch on, or does somebody else want to touch on the new phone system that we're going to have? Is that like belt and suspenders?
Absolutely. That's coming, that's the potential fix. I didn't want to advertise it because we don't have it yet, but within the next year, we should have the video visitation. And that's going to open it up even wider, make easier access. The attorneys will have access that way. And we still have to work out how that's going to work with the attorneys. But yes, that will probably resolve all the issues, because everybody will have contact when they need it.
Will those be secured rooms? Because I could see.
And that's what we've got to work out, where we're going to do that, or how we're going to do that. That's not, I don't have that plan yet.
Okay.
But that's our plan, is to set it up for the attorneys to use.
Prior to October, when you've implemented this with the help of Mr. Bensing in the court, what was the average complaint ratio monthly? Was it something that was, and let's face it, I mean, we have situations that it got to a point where you had to fix it. What was it before?
Councilman, I've been the regional director since April of 15, and I've received a handful of complaints that were legit from attorneys trying to visit, that weren't handled. Again, they're trying to do a job, and I understand that and respect that, and they have something on their mind they want to get there. And I think that when they're in that mode, that maybe 10 minutes seems longer to them, or 20 minutes, they want to take care of their business right then when the time comes. So I understand that. But I was pretty much caught off guard when we met with, the first time it come to my attention, with Judge Russo. And that's why Greg, and after sitting with Mr. Popovich and listening to the concerns about the privacy, then I kind of felt there was something, I understood that. If I can do something to help that, we need to. It was never, my action wasn't based off of the system was failing and people weren't getting in. It was always, for me, it was the privacy issue, trying to broaden that access to them so they did have some privacy.
Okay. Anything further? No.
Can I ask,
Are you good?
is that okay?
Are we good?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
As long as if Mr. Mills up. Just a question, and you don't need to answer this now, but something that's come to my attention is the staffing of the deputies throughout the day to bring inmates up for pretrials or hearings. I heard in the first half of the day it's sufficient and they're moved properly, but in the second half of the day that it's they're scrambling around trying to get enough staff to get the prisoners where they need to go. So has that come to your attention?
That's actually the sheriff's, I'm only correct.
I don't want to take over Mr. Gallagher's committee, so you don't need to answer, and it's up to Mr. Gallagher.
No, we're here.
Okay.
Right. That has not been brought to my attention in regards to staffing and moving inmates to and fro. I will tell you that most of the time, if not all the time, the deputies are usually occupied in another courtroom or busy. So what I've asked the court to do is, if you're going to be on the bench, give me a heads up or a 20-minute lead so I can try to find a deputy that's not assigned to court. Maybe they're assigned in the detective bureau, and I can pull that deputy from that unit to assist. That has not happened yet. We're still working through that process. So, but I want to piggyback on a couple of things that the director didn't bring up. Getting the rooms available for these visits, he kind of minimized it. That was a daunting task to do, because the count and the space available in the Justice Center is very limited. So I have to commend him and his staff for trying to locate those rooms for those visits. So and I don't want that to be just overlooked, that we have space available for these contact visits or these unscheduled visits, because to shift bodies and people around to make room for that was a very daunting task. So I commend them for doing that.
We're lay people, you guys do this for a living, and the problems are the problems, but, there's things in that I never even thought of with the gangs, and you can't have the two, and so there seems to be a vetting process involved in that, and not an easy job, certainly.
Absolutely.
I don't really want to belabor the article. I just want to really try and get to solutions here. It sounds to me like we're on our way. I think once the phone system in, it's going to be much more helpful. I would recommend that before we're up and running with that you coordinate with the court and make sure that privacy situation is taken care of. I could see that probably being a concern going forward just because of the video situation. But it sounds to me like it'll be a lot more helpful to the attorneys and their clients. Is there anyone else from your side?
Absolutely. I don't think
Mr. Bensing, did you want to have a comment?
Yes.
I'm going to ask.
Good afternoon. My name is Russ Bensing. I'm the president of the Cuyahoga County Defense Lawyers Association.
If you could hit the button.
Oh, okay.
There we go. That's better. We were formed in 1978. We are the largest local criminal bar association in the state of Ohio with approximately 200 members. I think the best comment indicating the length of this problem is when I told an attorney yesterday that I had been invited to this meeting. He told me that's the most progress we've made in 10 years. This has been a recurring problem. I will indicate to the committee that I have worked with Mr. Mills and with Mr. Ivy in developing the plans. I am fully impressed with their commitment to solving this problem. I don't have any problems with that. I do believe that there are still some serious problems with the jail visitation. The biggest one is what you mentioned, Councilman Gallagher, and that is privacy. There are 2,150 inmates in the county jail. There are 4 contact rooms where you can sit and talk with your client face to face, show him documents, get him to sign documents, and conduct what ordinarily you would want to conduct in a meeting with your client. The client-attorney relationship is perhaps the most important factor in your representation of a defendant, and that has to be honored. The attorney-client confidentiality has to be honored, and we have problems with that in that regard. As I said, there's only 4 rooms for contact visits. That's in Jail 1. There are no contact rooms available in Jail 2. They will bring defendants over from inmates over from Jail 1 to have contact visits in Jail 2. There are, as Mr. Mills indicated, a number of booths, I think about 20 booths in Jail 2, where you do have privacy. As far as meeting with your client, you're talking to him on a telephone through a glass pane. And that does not provide easy access as far as client-attorney relationship. The other rooms that we're talking about, and I compliment Mr. Mills, because one of the things that he did is he eliminated social visits for some of the rooms, or some of the floors on Jail 1. And before, we had situations where we would be sitting talking to our client through the glass panel, while right next to us was another inmate's fiancé discussing matters that I didn't really need to hear. That has been improved. We don't have the social visits, but the problem with that is that right behind my client, within about 10 feet away, are other inmates. That does not allow for client-attorney confidentiality. I'm sure you've all heard of the term jailhouse snitch, and somebody can overhear something that an inmate is saying to his attorney. That poses dangers. It's very difficult to conduct a conversation with a defendant about, say, a plea bargain when there are other attorneys standing behind me and there are other inmates standing behind the inmate. That is one thing that I absolutely think needs to be addressed. We need to increase the contact rooms available for attorneys. That has been a problem. I'm not sure of the figures. I know that the other week I went over to the jail just to ask about this, and I asked the corrections officer, who almost always handles this, Randy, very, very good people, and I compliment Mr. Mills for the most part on the competence and professionalism of his staff. But I asked Randy, if I were to schedule a contact visit, when's the earliest you could get me in? He said, the only time I could get you in tomorrow would be 7:30 in the morning. From my experience, what happens if you go in at 7:30 in the morning, they don't get the inmate up there till about 8:15. And that's, again, somewhat expected. They could be in the shower. Sometimes they're sleeping and you need to rouse them. But then you bump everything back. The attorney who comes at 8 o'clock has to wait for his room. I know at least 2 occasions. I was recently told by an attorney, and I think this was a little over a month ago, so this may have been within outside the time limit of the changes. He had a murder case scheduled to go to trial on a Monday. He called to get a contact visit with his client on Tuesday. He could not get a client visit the rest of the week. I have been over there recently. I have seen empty contact rooms, and in fact, other attorneys have mentioned that to me. Whether it's because of scheduling delays or something happens, I don't know, but I do know that it is extremely difficult for most attorneys, as I have been told, to get a contact room scheduled where they can meet with their client face-to-face. I think that's something that does need to be remedied. The only way it can be remedied is through structural changes. It may be that we can convert one of those floors, 6 or 7, into a series of contact booths so that you do have direct contact with your client. I think that is the biggest problem that we have. Again, Mr. Mills has done an excellent job in providing enhanced visitation. It used to be that you didn't get to see your client after 4:30. And you couldn't, and that became very difficult. If you were in trial with your client, you could not get to see him after the trial. And the evening hours and the weekend hours have been opened up, and that's a very positive sign. As I said, my belief here is that you don't fix the blame, you fix the problem. And that's what I'd like to continue doing, but there are some changes that do need to be made. What Mr. Mills and Mr. Ivy have accomplished is very good and very positive, but there are additional changes that need to be made.
Questions? Mr. Greenspan?
Thank you. I don't mean to undermine the job and the complexity that you deal with and trying to schedule time and meet with your clients or your members' clients. Looking at the utilization that we saw, we're not at 100% utilization for the contact visit rooms.
And again, I'm not sure if those, I don't know how those figures were calculated, but when somebody tells me that the earliest they can get me in is 7:30 in the morning, and it's 2 days after that, if I want something like 8 or 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, then I have to figure that it's not a situation where 66% of the time those rooms aren't being used.
Well, they might be booked during the time in which your associate member wishes to meet with the client. It might not be convenient for them, but the room is available. It's not made unavailable. It just might not be made available at the time your attorney wishes to meet with the client. Is that correct?
Well, no, I don't think that is correct. As I indicated, I've known.
So are you saying these rooms are being left open and your member clients are being denied access to the inmates when there's a visitation room?
No,
that's
I'm
available?
not saying that.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that on at least 2 occasions in recent memory, one of my members has come up to me and told me that they had a situation with a murder trial where they could not get a contact visit with the client in the time before trial, the 2-3 days before trial. And eventually what happened is that the judge allowed the inmate to be brought up to the holding cell in the courtroom so a meeting could take place. That has happened. In fact, Judge Russo has spoken to me about the possibility of doing that. I think that that's preferable to what we have now. But I think that would put additional strains on the system if you have to get people and bring them up to the courtrooms. But I do not believe it is a situation where nobody's calling in for contact visits. I know for a fact that is not true. We are having a great deal of difficulty simply because of the low number of contact rooms. When you have 4 contact rooms for 2,150 inmates, that's too little.
Well, I'm not disputing what you're saying. I'm just seeing a stat in front of me that says the rooms are available are used only 66% of the time. I just don't know if it's on a first come first served basis as to the reservation of one of the rooms, if there needs to be a prioritization to the seriousness of the crime or the time in which between that time and the trial. That's a different issue. But what we're being presented with is there's availability, there's room. On the contact side, on the private attorney room side, there are 38% occupancy. So it seems that there's opportunity there as well.
Oh, I don't dispute that as far as the visiting booths. Again, that's a situation.
No, I'm talking about the private attorney rooms.
That's what I'm talking about too. Okay, that's the one where you talk to your client over the phone
Mm-hmm.
through the glass panel.
In a private room.
Well, it's a private room, yes,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not an ideal method of discussing something with a client. The contact visit is the most important type of visit that you can have. It's the most meaningful. It's where you actually get to participate with the client in going over documents, affidavits, and so forth. And the visiting booths, I'll call them that as opposed to the other rooms, are a help in that regard. But keep something in mind, too. They will not bring an inmate over from jail 1 to be, at least to my knowledge, to visit in all of those contact booths are in jail 2. Okay, the booths as opposed to the contact rooms where you meet face to face. The booths where you talk to your client in privacy but through the glass pane and over a phone are all in jail 2. And to my knowledge, they do not bring a client over from jail 1 to jail 2 in order to conduct that kind of visit. So if your client is in jail 1, you don't get access to those 20 attorney visit booths. Am I correct about that, Ken?
No, sir, we bring them over.
Right, I was gonna challenge.
That has been a change then.
Because I thought Director Mills said that they were bringing it.
Okay.
And that was part of the delay because they had to.
Yeah,
the
okay, then
transfer
I
time.
stand corrected on that, and that's certainly a positive step.
Okay, and just to restate, and you may not know, the Hamilton County, we heard testimony that they have no contact visit rooms that they need in the law library. Do you know how your associates in Hamilton County deal with this situation?
No, I do not.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Ms. Conway.
My question is not for Mr. Bensing, it's for the sheriff or Ken. In regards to, do we have space to make more rooms, contact rooms? Because Mr. Bensing kind of suggested us making 6th floor, 7th floor. I don't really know the makeup over there.
Let me, real quick before I let you answer, when the Justice Center was built in 1978, 1976 or whatever, it was built to hold roughly around 1760, 1750 inmates. We have close to 2,200 in there right now. So just those numbers alone illustrates the work they put in to try to make room for these visits. Well, I'll let him speak on if there's any more room available in the end. So.
We have used every piece, every bit of space I have to open up for contact rooms.
No, when I was addressing
It's
that,
talking about
yeah, well,
reconstruction.
what I'm talking about is constructing rooms there. You have one contact room on the 6th floor, one contact room on the 7th floor. You have about 8 or 9 booths. There's one private booth. The others are non-private, where there are attorneys behind you, other inmates behind the inmates. What I'm suggesting is taking out some of that and building contact visit rooms. I just don't think that you're going to resolve this problem with 4 contact rooms for 2,150 inmates. And that has been repeated by my membership constantly.
Well, to the council, are you done? Ma'am? To the councilwoman's point, I think on the horizon, we might have something with this video conferencing with the new phone system, at which point in time, what we do have as far as an existing space, there may be a way in which that we can shift that around to afford you and your folks what they need, at least a little bit more. I think what I would ask is that, what's the ETA on the phone system, first quarter of 17? So we're within shouting distance, 90 to 100 days out, maybe. At which point, probably now would be a good time to be discussing what Mr. Bensing's asking for, if that's possible. Not knowing, of course, what that's going to give us when it's up and running. I think it's going to afford us the ability to move some space around. And I'm not an expert, but I think if you'd be willing to work with Mr. Bensing on that, I think maybe we can accommodate more room for those face-to-face meetings.
Yeah, I've spoken to Mr. Mills about the video and that the televideo. I think that would solve a lot of problems, because obviously it would decrease the number of social visits, and we have to keep in mind that we still have to let families come in and see their clients too, see their friends and relatives. But if we have the televideo thing, that should substantially reduce that. I'm not sure if the impact on the attorney-client visits through that, because there's problems as far as who's going to pay for it. You know, most of us are representing indigent clients. We're not going to pay for it out of our own pocket. I don't know if it can be, expensed out. And there are also some attorney-client issues there too. I don't know about the security for the televideo thing, okay? And as we all know.
Well, going forward, I think that's something that we
Yes,
should.
but
You should work with the sheriff and Mr. Mills on, and I think that would put us on a road to.
Yes,
It's not nirvana, but it's certainly a lot better than what we have.
Yes,
And
yes.
if it affords more attorneys to be able to see their clients in that manner, I think that's the way we want to go. So I think what we're asking is time, or what the sheriff would be asking, I don't want to speak for him, is that time to get that system up and running, coordinate with you as to when it does get up and running, or at least bring you in now, so you're part of that implementation, and then we can move forward in the next 100 days. Once it's up and running, it'll have its glitches and bugs, but we'll have time to address the problems going forward. It seems as though that we're on our way as far as helping what was a bad situation into a better situation, I think with the video thing, we're gonna be even closer to that. So if you would work with the sheriff, Mr. Mills, I think that gets us at least to the end zone a little bit closer.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent suggestion. And again, I'd repeat that I found Mr. Mills and Mr. Ivy perfectly cooperative here. And I have no doubt as to their intentions to try and resolve this problem.
Right.
And I'm perfectly willing to work with them on doing that.
And Mr. Germana has a question, but before that, Mr. Mills, could you just tell us quickly, and I'm mindful of the time, to schedule, if I'm an attorney, I want to schedule that face-to-face with my client, how do I go about that? And is there a daily, how do we do it?
There's two ways. Either they can come down and do it in person and schedule their appointment at our booth, or they can call the attorney hotline. And we have a dedicated phone line for them. They can call it and schedule their appointment that way.
Okay, Mr. Germana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I'm wondering is part of this problem created by peak times or preferred times? As an example, coming down today from Parma, I could go from desk to desk in 20 minutes. But it wasn't rush hour. Okay, this was 2:30 in the afternoon. Okay, at the same time, I didn't have a chance to have lunch, so I went through McDonald's, and I got right through at 2:30. But if it was at 1 o'clock, prime times, you're out on the curb, and you got. So I'm just wondering if there's preferred times for attorney visits, and it's like peak time and
That is an
convenience.
issue. That is an issue, Councilman. The way it works, all criminal pretrials are held in the morning, okay? 9 o'clock, every single one of them. Most criminal defense attorneys will try to schedule it so they have 3 or 4 or even more pretrials in a single morning, so they're not just coming over here for one of them, because if you come over here for one of them, I guarantee you're going to be wasting about 2 hours of your time, because that's just the way the courts work. The best example of that I can give you is I remember sitting there one time and somebody stuck their head in and said, "What time are the 9 o'clock hearings?"
We want our committee meetings that we got to come
Exactly.
to one after the other
Yeah.
instead of
Exactly.
2-hour breaks.
So the
and-
morning is when you spend your time going to the pretrial. So the ideal time to see your client is right after that. And that bumps you into the lunch hour in the count, or in the afternoon, then you have to make a special trip back to the Justice Center. That is a problem, and I'm not sure how to resolve that. That's just the nature of the beast.
Mr. Greenspan for a follow-up.
Yeah, thank you.
Could
So I'm trying to understand the crux of the issue isn't the availability for attorneys to meet with their clients. It's the request that that there aren't enough contact rooms.
That is correct.
Okay, because if I'm doing the math, taking out the hour, even taking out 2 hours for lunch, there are 137 hours available between the 4 rooms and the 14 private attorney rooms. And the average, if you take the average of 3,900 visits over that 51-day period, it's about 75 visits per day on average. So if there are 75 average requests per day, I'm
Yeah,
just doing the
just
math.
let me,
Yeah.
are all 4 contact visit rooms available at all times?
Yes, and they're half-hour slots too.
Oh, so half hour.
Visitation's half-hour.
So I'm even doing hours. So if you do half hours, that means there are 274 available opportunities for an average of 75 visits per day. So the issue isn't the ability for attorneys to meet with their clients. The issue is the availability to meet in a contact room.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
Well, that helps clarify
Yes.
the issue. Okay.
Yes, that
All right.
is.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Conwell?
Could the contact rooms be available just for when the inmates are in court? Could we work out a schedule where we know who was having court and then the contact rooms be made available?
That's not necessarily a solution here, because there are certain things that could cause you to want to have a contact visit with your client, okay? For example, the extension of a plea offer. You might not have a court hearing coming up for another couple of weeks, but you want to get to talk to your client about that, present him the full range of options, give him an opportunity to ponder it, to make a decision about that. It may be that there are new things that have come up, new discovery has been disclosed to you, which transforms the case. There could be a number of reasons why the visit isn't necessarily linked to an immediate court hearing.
Okay. Is there any rooms available next door in the building that's connected, the City of Cleveland owned portion?
No, not for visits for us.
Okay.
Mr. Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I appreciate you having this discussion today in light of the Plain Dealer articles and just the conversation we've been hearing back and forth between the court and the sheriff's office, et cetera. I believe that the sheriff and his team has laid out to us a great plan that they have instituted and put in place to deal with this issue. I think that we truly have a commitment from him and his staff to, at the very least, help move in the direction that most people would like to see us go in terms of visitation between the clients and their representation. At the end of the day, space is what it is. Availability is what it is, and we have to make do with what we have. So I am not interested today, on the other point, trying to help push the sheriff and his team in a direction that they don't believe that is the direction to go. I believe we have the individuals who are in these positions who are better equipped to make these decisions, and I believe that they have exhausted every possibility or search every inch of the building and try to make space and be accommodating to anyone who so choose to come and visit the folks who are in the jail. I think that we have to we have bent over backwards. I think we cannot continue to be in where we break our back. I think that we've heard from, I know that we've heard from Franklin County, and they have no private client rooms, or they have no outside hours for visitation. I just wanted to say that the sheriff and his team has done a great job in trying to remedy the situation, and I'm looking forward, like the committee chair said, to finding solutions to deal with this problem rather than continue to harp on the same issues that we know are there, and trying to find ways to fix something that very well may not be able to be fixed, but slowly enhanced over a period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think we're there if we can get 100 days out of you working with Mr. Mills and the sheriff. I think we're well on our way to get into an even better situation. It's nice to hear that things have gone in a positive direction, and I think once that bone system's up and running, I think we're going to find an availability for space. It's not my bailiwick, but I have great hope that we can do that. So why don't we do that? And if we can have you work and continuing to work with Mr. Mills and the sheriff, I think this will be the last that we hopefully hear of this, other than those rogues, because there will be that rogue situation, and we all understand that we are fallible.
I would prefer not to get up and read any more Plain Dealer articles myself. That came about as big a surprise to me as it did to you.
Well, not always helpful, but everybody has a job to do, right?
Yep, everybody does.
And I want to thank you for coming here. It was valuable for us to hear from your perspective what was going on, and the glowing things you have to say, and the concerns that you still maintain are there, and hopefully, like I said, we can address those. I want to afford Mr. Tobik, do you have anything? Well, I'm gonna give you 6 minutes of 2 cents.
To the chairman, to the committee, basically I agree with what Mr. Bensing said. The real issue is the privacy of a contact visit, where it's you and the client. We have a saying in the defender office from a longtime client that we've all genuflected to a mild paranoia now and again. So when you're talking about a video and an audio, that sends a shiver in a number of people's minds. We know that jail phone calls are recorded now. Anytime a client, you tell the client, don't talk about your case to your family, and next thing you know, you have 14 conversations that really are harmful to the case. I think that the complaints or the comments I get from my office, one, we had talked to the sheriff about the after 4:30 visitations, and they've been very helpful in scheduling if people are in court and they have to go after 4:30 to talk to their client. The contact room situation, though, needs to be better. One of the problems is in the morning, it's very difficult for the attorneys to get over to do the visitation, which I think is why you see the not 100% usage of all these different rooms. That they're in court, they're doing their pretrials, and they can't get over there. So some attorneys get there maybe before 8 o'clock, then they have to go to court, and they're basically there all morning in the courtroom. So the afternoon visits are when the jam up occurs. One of the situations I thought where you could maybe expand the space, there was a plan about 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, to utilize the space on the bridge between Jail 2 and Jail 1 when they transport prisoners and material and people back and forth, to make contact visit rooms there, because I think there was space. I talked to Director Bova about it a couple of weeks ago. We haven't followed up yet, but there may be space there where you can do it. But the booths that in the one picture where there are booths, you do have people on both sides talking and people listening, and you have the deputies there, and it's not very conducive. And sometimes you just have to get down and talk to the client privately and say, here's what we have, and hear what the client has to say. The other thing is they used to bring people over to the courtrooms in the holding cells there, where at least, we were in a holding cell, but you were able to talk to the client either in the holding cell or in the little conference rooms there on the floor where the pretrial was being held. So that, I don't think the sheriff has the staffing to be running people back and forth right now. So I'd like to see the jail visitation expanded.
Well, we're hopefully on our way to doing that. Let's see what the next 100 days brings us. If you want to participate, I think you'd be welcome. I don't want to speak for the sheriff, but your folks are involved with this, so if you have that kind of input, I think you're more than welcome. And maybe we can meet back here sometime in March and see where we're at with all of this.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Is that good?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to forward Mr. Popfish. Do you have anything to add, sir?
I just want to echo Mr. Bensing's comments. I do want to commend the sheriff, Director Mills, and his staff. They have tried with the limited space that they have to make more space available. So I want to make sure I publicly address that they have been cooperative in that regards. They are limited. And again, the frustration from the court's perspective is we keep hearing from counsel they cannot see their client. And we'll take maybe a little closer look at the statistics that was raised today in regards to that, because otherwise we're in a position of they're telling us they can't do their job, which means now we have an effective assistance of counsel issue, and or they ask for continuances or a lot of other issues because they cannot prepare for their case. We're told that on the weekends they can't prepare for their case on a Monday for a trial. Well, that's an issue for us at the court. I will say I'm very hopeful that the technology will, regarding the video, may prove to be very successful. I'm hoping, anyways, from that, as you mentioned. So maybe in March would be a good time to come back and revisit this. I do want to say publicly, and this is, I really don't think you should be charging clients for their right to speak to counsel. I guess I'll leave it at that. I think they have every right to talk to their attorney free of charge, in my opinion. And so you have a person who's got to judge, well, do I want to spend my money or not talk to my attorney? Well, I don't think that the inmate should be put in that position personally. But
So we've got time to address that. And
good, perfect.
I don't disagree with you on that. But once again,
Okay.
we'll we'll cross that when we can.
Thank you so
But no, that's a good point. It's a legitimate point.
Because the great thing is we want council to use the technology. We want,
No,
rather than coming to the,
Which is going to open up that space.
Exactly
I
right.
think,
that's
Mr.
perfect. So-
Greenspan, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I'm just curious, we're hearing, the sheriff didn't go to the newspaper with this, the Defenders Association did, Mr. Tobick didn't, we didn't. How did the paper get a hold of a story that we're now finding is really not necessarily
I'd like to
so
know that as well, because I asked that question as well. And actually, the reporter showed up at Judge Russo's chambers because my counsel referred the reporter to him. So I could tell you publicly, the court did not call the media in regards to this. We were trying to work with the sheriff's department in regards to this. So anyways, to answer your question, they showed up on his doorstep basically and were referred to him. So anyways,
And then there was comment provided back to
at
the
that
reporter?
point, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Well, regardless of that, I think we're moving in a forward positive direction. We'll see you back here in March, and hopefully we'll have good things to report.
Great, thanks.
And we'll look into that cost factor. I think that's important.
If I may, there's one other thing I'd like to say, that the council should, this council, as opposed to the legal council, should be supportive of the bail reform movement, because that's one of the problems, that people are sitting in jail where they can't make a bond, and if they were out, they could talk to the clients, they could come into our office or the lawyer's office, and they wouldn't have the problem.
Well, we've had a history of not publicly getting involved in that, but I can tell you, and I don't speak for everybody, but I think the majority of the council would be very much in favor.
Right. Thank you.
Anything, Mr. Hairston?
Absolutely. Definitely count me in on being supportive of that. Just when he spoke about the bail reform, that made me think about the real-time GPS system, and really seeing the sheriff department really push that and trying to get those numbers where they should be, that could have potentially helped with some of these, well, the issues that we're having with capacity. I know Councilwoman Simon has another question.
Ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, I'm just going to leave it out there that I want to see if staffing is an issue with regard to getting these rooms available to counsel and their clients. So just want to, and maybe we can have a sheet that's public to see when the rooms are reserved and when they're not. Because right now I'm hearing from one side and the other that maybe that's a good way to do it, is just post that these are the rooms and this is when they're available and here's when they're taken. And I want to look at staffing later. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for indulging me.
We good?
Thank you.
We all set? Anything miscellaneous? Thank you.